Here, I'll guide you through getting 8 very cool mounts, now very easily obtained from old Savage content, from Heavensward to Shadowbringers. In case you're not aware, the Savage-esque fights in A Realm Reborn, the Cause of Bahamut, unfortunately do not reward any mounts to go back for. The great thing about going after these mounts is that one is guaranteed to drop with every clear, so no RNG involved in drop rates. So if you're in a full party, you still just need to run it 8 times and all will have the mount guaranteed. 5 of these 8 are now obtainable solo, with a little knowledge and practice which I'll run through here, but if you don't want to invest the time or brain power, each can be absolutely steamrolled in a group. All content will be done unsynced. For those new, this is where you retain your current level, abilities and gear etc. in older lower level content. To achieve this, you just click the options cog in the top left of the duty menu and tick unrestricted party. This guide assumes you are level 100 with an item level of at least 700, which is really easily reached post the MSQ. Hit up my latest gearing guide, linked in the description if you need a little help on this. But first, we'll start with Heavensward, where, unlike by today's standards, we only got 2 mounts from the 3 final fights of the raid tiers. And first, getting us going, the 4th fight overall of the expansion, the Burden of the Father Savage. Do make sure you're loading up the Savage version, because I've lost count of how many times I've accidentally loaded the normal version, which of course has no mount. More the merrier on all of these fights, but this one is pretty darn easy solo. However, there is one very important mechanic to know which we'll come to. It is super easy on any tank or DPS class, and I also managed it comfortably on White Mage with Glare 4/Aziz, but I had great difficulty on Scholar for example due to lack of burst DPS, so I'd say DPS or tank preferred. During the fight you'll kill 4 legs. After you've killed the 3rd and the 4th leg becomes targetable, you have roughly 2 seconds, maybe slightly less, to kill it before it places 2 debuffs on you which will wipe you. Even tank involves ain't gonna help. So the strat is simple. As soon as you kill the 3rd leg, run to stand next to the final leg, doesn't matter which order you do them in, which you haven't killed yet. Do not use any OGCDs, attacks, powerful abilities prior to that, just save it to burst on this final leg, and start spamming attack to get going as soon as it becomes targetable. But that's it, guide effectively done. So moving on, the 12th fight in the same expansion series, the Soul of the Creator Savage. Again, no need for a group to run through this, really easy and quick solo, this time on any job or any role. With the power and speed you've got at level 100, there's really nothing to talk about, just keep hitting stuff until it's all dead. We now transition to Stormblood. While very easy in a group, they do provide a step up in challenge when solo. And while you'll be able to get through the first described here, Deltascape 4 on basically any class, the second 2 fights we'll discuss are pretty tricky on any other role other than tank. I'll run through the key mechanics to know when solo, knowing that you'll steamroll, missing most of the mechanics in a full party. First, the 4th fight of the expansion, Deltascape 4.0 Savage, aka X-Death. This is comfortably solo on most classes. There are a few mechanics which you need to understand, whether solo in a group, because they have annoying knockbacks. So phase 1. The decisive battle. Look to the centre for tentacles. They will spawn 1 at a time in a circle, and you're looking for the last one to spawn. Once freed, run to the last one to appear, standing just off centre to be knocked back. After the first tentacle resolves, run into the space where it was, which will now be safe from a further knockback from a tentacle. After the tentacles all resolve, run to the edge of the arena on any side. When the boss appears, stand with the whole arena behind you for a huge knockback from the boss's vacuum wave. Be aware of vacuum wave in a group in case you still see it. Phase 2. Neo X-Death. Grand Cross Alpha. Position dead center in the arena before this finishes casting, as it will give you a terror debuff, losing your control of your character, and you don't want to run off the edge of the arena. You'll also get one of these icons. When Flood of Naught is cast, stand on the arena half with the opposite symbol to yours. You'll also get an acceleration bomb, which if you want to avoid the damage down, stand still/stop attacking just before the timer runs out. Flood of Naught. This initial one will knock you back, so stand close to the boss. You'll then see the symbols mentioned, so go to the opposite one. Double attack. Has a knockback, so stand close to be knocked back towards the arena centre. Emptiness and Flood of Naught combined. 3 pathing AoE markers will appear, which will send AoEs in the direction of their arrows. Determine a safe spot which no arrows are facing. Then, as you are moving, look at the boss for a tell for a centre/outside arena AoE cast animation. If the laser orbs are concentrated in the centre like this, dodge to the side of the arena. If the orbs are on either side, then dodge in the centre. Grand Cross Delta/Beyond Death debuff. This will be an instant wipe if you are unaware. You'll get one of those markers again, but also this Beyond Death debuff, which means you basically have to get hit and die to live. Getting hit by either the in-outside Flood of Naught attack or the same symbol will do the trick. Whichever of the boss attacks you see first. And that's it. The more people, the quicker. With 8 DPS, you will annihilate the boss. Skipping almost all mechanics. Just be mindful of the knockback mechanics described and the Beyond Death debuff if you haven't killed it at that point. Next, Sigmascape 4.0 Savage, the 8th fight of the expansion. I believe, through research on my own testing, that realistically this is only possible with a tank, or potentially a barrier healer. We'll get to the mechanic in question later. So, mechanics of note when solo. Phase 1. Ground AoEs are denoted by these purpley markers, noting that if there are question marks around the boss, then it will be the opposite. So here, stay out if normal. If question marks, stand into the purple lines. Not life or death, but saves you being slowed down with damage debuffs. Graven Image. When the large statue appears and tethers to you, move close to it as it will be a big knockback. Graven Image again. The statue will move and leave behind an orb which will fire, creating another orb on the opposite side. Move to the second one created as a large knockback will emanate from it. Phase 2. Heartless Angel. Reduces you to 1 health. You don't need to get yourself back up to full health, but just use some self heals to get away from 1 so the next hit doesn't kill you. Forsaken/Heartless Angel. This is the key mechanic of the fight. You will be reduced to 1 HP and get a debuff preventing all heals. This is where you 100% need a shield or a barrier of some description to survive during the no heals debuff. Some DPS do have that, but your barrier will likely be off cooldown before the mechanic comes up again. May be possible with Summoner's 2 shield charges. Let me know in the comments if you manage it, Summoners. Manage your shields effectively though. For example, on Warrior, I put Bloodwetting for the first Forsaken and then Shake It Off for the second Forsaken. Don't worry about the towers or anything else, just pop a shield ability when you get down to 1 HP, wait for the healing debuff to drop off, and then heal up best you can. Same principle applies when the mechanic comes around again. And that's it. Avoid AoE triangles best you can, but at this stage, you'll now just power through any damage downs until the end of the fight. As usual, if instead you choose to take 8 players, even 8 DPS, you'll absolutely annihilate the boss, just be mindful of the knockbacks described. Also possible, done by myself with just a 3 DPS combo, with enough damage to kill before the boss does the Forsaken Heartless Angel mechanic. There we go. Next, the last of the Stormblood fights, and the last in this video doable soloable. Alphascape 4.0 Savage, Omega Twins. Due to an early 2-hit tank buster, this is currently only possible solo on a tank. I'd also recommend having some current level food to help. Phase 1 Solo. At the start, pull the boss to the east or west edge for beyond defense. Use your opener buffs, OGCDs, and then save them. Don't use them for a second time. A large line AoE north to south, and the boss will do a 2-hit tank buster. Use mitigation, at least your 40% ability, then heal up. Stay at the arena edge and beat down the male boy and Omega F will appear. Immediately move to have the boss at the edge and you're back to the centre. Omega F will knock you straight back after appearing. Reposition the boss on the opposite side to the giant eye if not already there, and chip away at the boss, saving all your burst abilities. Ensure there is space behind the boss as you'll need it to avoid superliminal motion. After polishing off F, both lady and boy will return. Use mitigations for the stack before they appear. They will appear wherever you stand for the stack, so head to the arena edge, ready to position for another knockback into the centre. Now, here there is some RNG. Dependent on the debuffs the bosses get, it can be impossible on an unlucky run. Basically, if you see this buff, it means they are stronger together when they are close together. Being solo, you cannot separate them, so just wipe the run and start again. You need to see instead this buff, which means they are stronger apart. You'll also get a buff icon, which basically means you can only attack either the male or female initially. You'll see invincible and no damage if you attack the wrong one, so it's fairly obvious. Here, once you know you're hitting the right one, dump all your offensive kit, including I'd recommend the potion. Ideally, you need to kill the first one ASAP. Advanced suppression. Pay attention for this cast and hit your tank involve a second or two after it finishes casting. Monitor the boss's health as you get it down to 0.1%, as it will still stay targetable, but once at 0.1 the debuffs will drop so you can switch to the other boss. Don't worry if this takes a few attempts, as this really is the hard part of the fight, there's not really anything else to it. Phase 2. Just basically avoid the AoEs best you can. Don't really worry if you get hit, and spank it, healing up as needed. Honestly, there's nothing else to it. As per the other fights, take a DPS and you'll absolutely annihilate before most mechanics happen. Just position as described for the knockbacks when both F and M appear together, as you'll likely skip the first knockback I described. For reference, again, we did the fight quite easily, composed of just 3 DPS. With that, that's Stormblood covered, so we'll move on to Shadowbringers. And here we'll leave the notion of solo behind and focus on machining the boss down in full parties to avoid as many mechanics as possible. First up, Gate Sepulture Savage, the 4th raid of the expansion. Go for 7 DPS and 1 tank composition, enabling you to down the boss before anything remotely challenging happens. Mechanics to still respect though. Yellow triangles above heads, this is spread, but in this fight this actually means each player needs to stand in their own square. Range move to the outer squares to enable melee to continue hacking away at the boss, which is important here. Orange square above the head, all stack in 1 square. Evil Earth. 2 AoEs will pulse outwards. Don't worry about doing this perfectly. I just wait for the initial squares to explode and then move into one of them. You'll likely get hit by one of the subsequent explosions, but that's not going to be a cause for concern here. Ideally, the boss then dies before Geocrush. But if not and you see it casting, use your knockback immunity as the boss will jump and do a huge knockback, which can be a little bit awkward without experience to get the angle right. If you've all survived, the boss should now really be down before the next major mechanic, about a 1-minute runtime. Eden's Verse, Refulgence Savage, aka Shiva. There are, I'm sure, other viable ways, but ideally I'd recommend 1 tank, 2 healers and 5 DPS to prevent excessive raising. Phase 1, just tank and spank it. Don't worry about anything, just whack away at the boss. After you're released from the stun, 4 players should go in 1 circle and 4 players in the other. You'll be wanting 1 healer in each circle to get this done smoothly. Make sure players intercept the tethers to avoid a wipe. Ideally, a different player for each tether. There'll be 4 in total, although it's not absolutely necessary at this point. And kill the ads and get yourself to phase 2. Here, have the tank use a bit of mitigation for Morn, but otherwise just spank the boss until it's dead. All done. Eden's Promise Eternity Savage. Composition: 1 tank, 1 heal and 6 DPS. First thing to do in this fight is move your camera so you can see the crystals on the side of the arena with the bosses inside, i.e. Ramuh, Shiva, etc. First, the main boss will either channel Shiva or Titan. Shiva, be aware, normally catches a lot of people out. Channeling Shiva means there will be party spread mechanics. You'll get Rapturous Reach, which is a large AoE, extending slightly larger than the half arena. Head to the opposite side to the large pink Mistel. Important, however, as soon as the AoE resolves, you'll get hit by the Shiva spreads, which will kill players who are overlapping. So healers and range spread out to the arena edge. Note that also some can spread back onto the Rapturous Reach side once you see the animation go off. You've got a second maybe. If Titan is initially channeled instead, then you'll be a full party stack instead of spreads. Much easier, but I seem to rarely see it. The boss will then channel 2 of either Leviathan, Garuda, Ramuh or Ifrit. Each indicates a different AoE, with the boss channeling 2 which will resolve at the same time. Ramuh singles a AoE circle under the boss, a chariot if you will, which you'll need to move out from away from the boss, basically out of its hitbox. Leviathan indicates large line AoEs on either side of the arena, with a safe spot being in the centre north to south. Ifrit creates a large AoE, with the only safe spots being cones directly east and west of the boss, while lastly Garuda on the other hand indicates large cone AoEs at the cardinals, meaning the intercardinals are the safe spots, i.e. northeast, southwest, etc. You'll be tackling 2 at the same time, so for example Leviathan and Garuda would be dealt with in the centre, north to south for Leviathan, while being at an intercard for Garuda, so kind of at an intercard close to the boss. Or likewise Leviathan and Ramuh would be out of the boss's hitbox for Ramuh, but then still north-south cardinals for Leviathan to avoid the side AoEs. Basically, just avoid getting hit by both at one stage. If you get tagged by one, not the end of the world. This will be immediately followed by another Shiva or Titan spread stack, the same as whichever one was indicated at the start. So move out as soon as the Leviathan, Garuda, etc. attack resolves. Phase 2. I'll be honest, you ain't gonna see much here. The hard part's done. You'll eventually either see spread markers or stack markers. The trick being that these will not resolve straight away as you will expect. The boss will follow with spell in waiting, and thus the attack will actually go off when the timer above your head finishes. So spread or stack accordingly in the final few seconds. Just before it goes off to try and confuse you, it will indicate another stack or spread which works in the same way. Stay put in your positions to resolve the first when your timer runs out, before thinking about the second indicated. And that's it for Phase 2. Really does go down like a sack of spuds. And there we have it. 8 really easy Savage mounts to go after, whether you want a bit of a challenge solo, or to just steamroll in a group. I'll be monitoring how easy endwalker Savage fights get during the course of dawntrail, to gauge when to do a follow-up video for them. I'm aware that P4S has become quite easy with 7 DPS and 1 tank, but there are quite a few videos out there for that already, so I'll probably wait until all 3 of those fights can be done in a very simple manner before putting together a video for them. But for now, good luck, enjoy your 8 mounts, and know that your support would be hugely appreciated if you could like, comment, or subscribe to complete the duty.